All right. So, hey guys, I could not be more excited to launch our interview series with Jaycina Almond, who is a model and founder of Tinder, a nonprofit organization that is helping moms on the margin in the Atlanta area. So, welcome to CoTripper's first interview, Jaycina. I'm super
Yes.
excited to have you.
Hi, yes. Thank you so much for offering up this platform and having me here and spending your morning with me. So I'm excited.
Yes, yes. So, I'm not going to waste any time. I want to know all about Tinder. So, tell us kind of how your experience in motherhood inspired you to create the Tinder Foundation.
Okay, so I I guess that also means telling you a little about myself because I got pregnant when I was 20. And I was a single mom pretty much since I was pregnant. So at Tender, we're a nonprofit. And we're providing a safety net for single moms living on the margins here in Atlanta. We do that through our bill pay assistance with rent, utilities, childcare costs. We provide grocery store gift cards. We operate a diaper bank, and we just launched our newest program called The Bridge last month, which is a direct cash transfer program where 25 Black single moms are receiving $500 a month, no strings attached for a full year, as well as free optional access to Google Cert, uh, technical certifications, mental health services, and financial coaching. So, of course, knowing that I'm a single mom, like that journey was definitely a catalyst for dreaming up Tender. I didn't have to worry about if I could afford diapers. I didn't have to worry about if my rent was going to be paid. But doing it alone and as a single mom was still extremely, extremely hard. Um, so imagine having to worry about like those things and still parent and still give your all to your children. That's extremely tough. So showing up for like the moms who look like me, the moms who got pregnant at 20 like me, or the moms who are have a house full of kids and just got divorced, like et cetera, all of that, like building the community for all of us and creating access to the material means to live a full life. That's kind of how Tinder came about and why we do the work that we do. And yeah.
That's amazing. One thing that you said that really I guess touched me in what we're doing at CoTripper as well is like this idea of community and the idea of like a community that kind of um, changes the narrative of single motherhood, really spotlights how challenging it can be, right? And provides resources or ways for moms to connect in a way that just isn't targeted to us. So, talk to me a little bit about kind of like your journey in single motherhood as it relates to community and why is like building a community as a part of Tinder so important?
Um, I mean, so when I was pregnant, I was basically we lived in two different states. My daughter's dad moved early on in my pregnancy to LA and I live in Atlanta. Um, so my best friends were like the people who provided community throughout my pregnancy, those were the people that showed up for me. So having that peace or like having a village you can lean on means all the difference. I wouldn't be able to have a career if I didn't have my friends, and even my friends' parents. Like my best friend's parents now are like my parents because my family lives in Michigan, right? So there would be none of this if I didn't have that community there because those were the folks that made it possible for me to build my career out. Those are the folks who make it possible for me to do my work and, watch my kid. So yeah, so making sure that we can at least if we cannot like, ourselves show up for the moms in our community, making it so that they have the resources is to build out their community or the resources to pay for childcare, those things. Um, yeah, that's why I think also just building community is important, along with having like monetary resources.
Right. Yeah. And I love that. And I love that your village is like your friends' parents. Oftentimes in our community, we talk a lot about like some moms who don't have a village. And I think when we started to reframe like who that was, like it doesn't have to be the dad, or, like it doesn't have to be your own family, it could be your family, that really comes and steps in. I think just us talking about asking for help as single moms, which I found that difficult as a single mom, because of just the perception of like, I'm already a single mom and now I'm asking for help made me feel like kind of like a stereotype in a way, because that was always what was messaged to me, is that we would need help. So to find a community and, to have resources, all the things that you're doing at Tinder and what we try to do at CoTripper is extremely important to talk about, just to break down those barriers on having moms, feel comfortable to do these things and reach out in that way. So I love that. We're a travel company, branching out into lifestyle, really wanting to talk to single moms because that's what our community is kind of digging right now, just connecting with as many moms as possible. So as a model, you touched on this before, and like just working in general, how do you balance that? I know you said that you have support, but like, how do you kind of balance motherhood and career as a single mom?
Um, I like people ask this a lot, and for me, like there is no balance really.
Mm.
You just make it work and it works, and that's your balance. But nothing is ever like equally yoked. There's really no balance. Um, like I said, I wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for my best friend for the first several years of my daughter's life. We would go to LA for 3 months, stay in LA, then we'd come home for 3 months, and we would do it again. And then, like me, my best friend, and my daughter. Then we would do the same thing for New York, because modeling, you have to be there. You have to go to castings, especially in development. Like nobody knows who you are, so you have to stay there.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, like there is no balance when it comes to working or anything. To me, it's like you prioritize what's important, right? And I think that's more important than figuring out this like elusive idea of balance. It's like just prioritizing what's important to you and your family that day, that week, that month, and being like, okay, this is what it is, and this is how it's going to work.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea of prioritizing, instead of using the word balance. Same. I think for me, it's a lot of managing. It feels like a lot of managing. And one, as we spoke about before, is having that circle of support that can help me manage.
Yeah.
And then two, like you said, prioritizing. And I think the third thing for me is just like accepting stuff for what it is, right? It's so many things that we have to do as single moms. I think that, taking down the barriers of like something happened and moving on, right? I think I had to teach myself how to do that, because
What it
oftentimes,
is.
yeah, like managing,
It's,
I'd be like, oh my God, fuck, like, what am I gonna, like it's hard,
my
right?
mom
It's like,
is, it is what it is.
yeah, it's super hard. So then once you get into like that mindset, like, like keep it pushing, like I'm gonna break this down into bite-sized pieces and keep it pushing, like game changer. It was a game changer for me at least. um yeah, so I want to jump back to Tinder for a second. I love that you guys have like a monetary angle to support, because I feel like, again, like it's just sometimes hard for single moms to ask for that. And then it's a little odd just as a person, even before I became a single mom, to like ask like need money and like
Yeah.
say that you need that, right? And at times we do. It is what it is, right? So what do you aspire for the future of Tinder? Like, how do you see your level of support expanding for single moms? What is your grandest vision of like what you want Tinder to be?
A lot of times I don't have the capacity to think like 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead. We do like a lot of grants and stuff. And so that's a big question. Like, what is your 5-year goals? And I'm like, listen, I'm just surprised we're here and we made it another day. Okay. Like
Right.
I'm just thankful we managed to keep going. But two of our big like grand dreams would be to have some sort of like our own housing complex that we can offer free, low cost, quality, safe housing for our families, because that's a big need. We do rent assistance, and so a lot of times we find families that are needing like housing placement programs, like actual getting into the places to live before they even have like a lease in place. So throughout our work, we've identified that as a need is some sort of like housing that we can offer. So that's a big, big dream that's
I love
30 years down the way. And then our next biggest goal would to have like in-house vehicles and capacity to hire drivers because our diaper bank, we make deliveries and folks can come pick up. But a lot of times, if transportation is a big barrier for families that live on the margins. So being able to expand our deliveries and reach a bigger perimeter of deliveries is our next big goal. Having our own trucks stocked with diapers and wipes and formula, so that we can make deliveries multiple times a week, further out. So yeah, those are my two big goals that we keep like, what are the little steps we can make to get there, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, and that reminds me of like my story a little bit too in terms of what you said about like I'm just trying to make it like to the next day. I don't think people realize how hard it is to manage, being a mom. And
Yeah.
then secondly, to build a business, whether it's a nonprofit, for-profit business, like to really build a business from the ground up is like the hardest thing I've done outside of motherhood, you know? Um, so especially building for single moms, I'll say that, I do a lot of pitching, a lot of, we got a grant last year actually, thank God, from a local Maryland program that really was a game changer for us. But like it's exhausting. That process is exhausting. At least for me, it is.
Oh, yeah.
So I would love to hear about your experience. Building for single moms has been met with a lot of these questions, right? Like for me, it's been a lot of why not single parents. It's been like, can single moms afford X? Because we're in the travel space. And the challenge is really getting people to understand the expansive nature of
Yeah.
single moms today, right? There are all different types of single moms on all different, raising families in multiple different ways on
Yes.
different parts of the financial, line. So I guess in building a company specifically for single moms, like what have some of your challenges been? Like have you experienced anything doing this work that's notable to say specifically that you're building a company for single moms?
Yeah. So for us, a lot of our imagery is Black women, is women that look like us. Our primary clients end up being Black and brown women. Um, so, and then we have a program that's specifically just for Black women. They're our newest one that I spoke about. So a lot of times we have that question, like, why only Black women? I'm like, y'all want to get into it? How much
Do
do you
you
want?
really want to get into
Okay. Do you want to get into it? So that's like one big question that I'm always like, let's be for real here when people ask me that. But as far as anything else, I feel like everything is its own challenge, especially because this is not like my wheelhouse. I don't come from a nonprofit background. We're like very scrappy. We're learning as we're going. Everything is pretty much DIY. So it's like a challenge within itself. But then also just asking for help and knowing when to delegate. I think as far as like a leadership role, it has been my biggest challenge. When you're, you know, steering the ship, that's something that I have struggled with. And I think maybe some of it does come from, because like you were speaking on like being a single mom, I didn't want to ask for help. I didn't want anybody to think I needed help because I we already consume so much of that, and like there's already a stigma around that. So then building something, I'm like, I don't want to ask for help. Like I should know these things, or I should be able to do it or whatever. And then just trusting somebody else to like execute for you is scary. So yeah, I think my like overarching biggest challenge is just like knowing how to ask for help, when to ask for help, and like when to delegate. Because not everything is a me task, you know?
Right.
When you're and in the beginning, sure, everything is a you task, but like 3 years in where we have a small team, um, those folks are there to support and to help. So learning when to tap that on them has been my biggest challenge for sure.
Yeah, I love that. I've experienced a lot of that. And it's hard, right? Because I think when you're trying to incubate an idea or a vision that you have, right, especially so personal to us, right, because we are like the people that we serve, right, we are a part of the community that we serve. It's really difficult to trust someone else with like the work,
Yeah,
right? But it's also like impossible, being that I'm the only person in my
right.
house managing drop-offs, pickups, emotional stuff, like my stuff, like it's super, super challenging. I wish I had an answer for you, but I love that. I love the vulnerability, right? I love the vulnerability of us talking about it,
Yeah.
because there are single moms who aspire to build, right? Like we're building, right? And maybe not specifically for single moms, but like in general, like how would I do that? How would I manage that? And I think having a real perspective, like it's hard. You're gonna, you have to delegate these notions of like things that are probably inherently a little more difficult for us as single moms, because I know like even just dropping my kids off, right? I'm like, oh, I gotta ask somebody to watch my kids. You know what I mean? So I
Anxiety
can do,
rises. You're
yes,
like,
I can do X, Y, and Z. It's sometimes it's just so much,
yeah.
So imagine adding a business or an endeavor onto that. Like, it's hard, right? It's hard, but I think like for you at Tinder and me at CoTripper, like the work is so worth it. So I think that's what helps me. I don't know if that helps you, but it makes me be able to let go and let other people step in, because I'm like, well, if the work is gonna all rely on me, it's not gonna get done
Right.
realistically, right? So I love that. So talking about you being in Atlanta, and being very close to the community that you serve, because our community is all over, so there's no concentrated area. So I would love to know kind of how does it feel to, like, what does it mean to you personally to be affecting women in the area where you live, where you can see them and have, that personal relationship. How has that kind of shaped the business and yourself, doing that work?
Um, that's a tough question because, like, ultimately, I believe Tinder, like, as an org, our ethos is that everybody should have access, to like the material means to live a full and meaningful life. Like, I don't think families should have to choose between paying a light bill or buying food, or families shouldn't have to reuse diapers. But like realistically, that's how it is living in like a white supremacist, capitalist, patriarchal society. Um, so I try to be very intentional that we're not doing this work with like a savior mentality. Like single moms have been making shit shake before we came along. Um, so like as much as I wish Tinder didn't have to exist, but until then, like I can be grateful and I can like show up with a full heart that we get to do this work and like we get to show up for our families. Um, so when people ask me like, well, what does it mean to you and stuff like that, I'm like, it means everything and nothing though at the same time, because it's like I'm just like this is just something that I care about and what I'm passionate about, but I'm not like, yay, look what we're doing, or yay, like I don't need a pat on the back for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
So
that's interesting. I agree. I think it's very interesting to for people to hear that, right? Because like I think people expect that because we're serving this demographic that we want a pat on the back, you
yeah.
know? But in actuality is like you said, like I shouldn't have to label even myself as a single mom. That's a whole nother rabbit hole we can go down. But it is necessary in my mind too, at the same time, like you said, like I feel like it's necessary because we're fighting against something that has been defined
Yeah.
already, and we're trying to break down, like debunk all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just set the tone so that no matter, what your entryway or path into motherhood is, that you have the support, the
Right.
resources, the community that you need. So I agree. A part of me is like very much so like annoyed that like, even the questions that are asked because I'm building for this community kind of like trigger me a little bit. But at the same time, I know the work is necessary because of what what has already
So
been
it's already been
established as the
questioned.
perception.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I hear you. That's tough. I struggle with that question. And then like oftentimes when people ask me like, how, like similar questions as I'm asking you, because they're not like, I mean, people want to know.
And I mean, that's how we have these conversations, and that's how, so
Right. Right. No, true. So I love that. So we're going to get into a little bit of travel, because that's what we do. So we want to know all the deets about like where you and Six have been, like what does it mean to you to show her, right? Like you're talking about, you spend stints in LA, then you're in New York. I mean, that's also cultivating a lifestyle for her, right? And she's seeing you, and we are our kids' biggest influence, regardless of what people say, what they see every day, right? And so I guess when you travel and you're taking your daughter on these experiences, like do you ever step back and be like, wow, like this is actually pretty dope for her, you know?
um yeah, definitely I have those like surreal moments, but in the beginning it was out of necessity,
Mm.
um she nursed for 21 months. She never took a bottle or a pacifier, so it was like she has to be near like she has to be nearby just to live, to sustain.
Right.
So, and I think back then it was hard, like
Yeah.
it's really hard, so it didn't even register like the to take a moment and be grateful for that. But now that she's older, it's just really fun. Like during lockdown, I think she was like 2.5, going on 3 when COVID hit.
Mhm.
So she'd been on airplanes her whole life, and so during lockdown, all she wanted to go was on an airplane. Like she wanted, because it was so normal for her. She was like,
Right.
"Why haven't we like we're supposed to be flying?" And she knew what video was on the Delta like screen. She was like, "Why can't I watch Monsters Inc?" Like she had her. It's like a routine,
Right.
and so now that she's about to turn 6 next month, like traveling and being on set and shooting with her, or just like going on like family vacations, those are memories that like we get to share and she'll have forever. And so I'm learning like now it's gotten a lot of fun now that it's not out of necessity. It's a lot funner now.
Yeah, I love that.
So yeah, like now I realize like the specialness of being able to bring her with me to work and show her like she knows what being on set is, and she knows cameras and all these things that not necessarily you don't know unless that's your experience. So yeah, I've learned now that it's a lot of funner, and I'm able to see the fullness of the experience for what it is now, a lot more than I was when she was younger.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And that's also like a nugget, what you said too, like a golden nugget. Cause I feel like, like if you would have told me in 2019, like even before the pandemic hit, and then I really was falling apart, right? If you would have told me like in that moment, I would have arrived where I am now.
Mhm.
I would be like, girl, you a goddamn lie. Like, because when you're in it, and my friend actually said this to me, she's like, I don't know what I was doing, but I have a neighbor. This is a random rant. Okay. I have a neighbor and he's like 80 years old, and I didn't grow up with my dad, right? I grew up in the house with a single mom too, right? So and I'm like, oh my God, this my neighbor, he comes, and I didn't have a granddad either. Like I didn't grow up with my grandfather, he had passed. So it was so nice to have like a person, like a figure in my mind, right? For my kids to see like a male figure, like, oh my God, he's helping us do things and he's like so nice and things like that. And then one of my friends told me, but they've always seen you, right? And I was like, wow, that's a powerful statement, because in it, I'm thinking about like just surviving, just getting
Yeah,
through, and like just trying to make it right day to day. It's not easy. And when she said like they've always seen you, I think that was like a light
what's
switch. It was
yeah,
like an aha moment. Like they actually have, and through the challenges and doing things out of necessity, and then coming to like, I feel like I'm at the same place now where I can reflect on like what their experience has been and will and is now and maybe will be in the future. I can actually give that some deep thought. Really is a testament to like things get better. right?
Yes.
And you are setting an example that
Yeah.
at times you don't even know, right? And so I love that you're at a point now where you can see the benefits and like really, really be present in those moments to be like, wow, like all kids experience is not like, when are we getting on a
Yeah.
plane? Like, girl, you're living good. you know, like I love that. So I want to just talk briefly about co-parenting, and I don't want to intrude. Please, stop me if this is too deep in the weeds. But like even just speaking to my co-parent, like, girl, I'm like a super statistic. If the people was telling you, what single moms are, I have 2 baby daddies. Okay, I'm Black. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But it's funny because like people assume that I've had like terrible co-parent, and I'm like, oh yeah, we have moments where we disagree. Like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. Like it's moments where I'm like, sir, and then I'm like, other sir. Um, but at the end of the day, I think like really I've tried to at times bear the brunt of like really hard situations with my co-parents, right? Um, like when we don't disagree at times it's not fun, right? But I always try to keep in mind the future of my kids, like what I knew what was and what wasn't, right? Like so in me at times, you're dealing with high emotional situations with co-parents at times, and I know I was, and I felt like I could see, thank God, because not everybody can. Like I felt like I could see the future,
Yeah.
a little bit in those moments, and I'll be taking hits to the chin like, okay, I'm gonna take this now. but and it helped me get to a place where one of healing for myself, right? When I decided not to let a relationship ending dictate kind of how my life would be, and knowing that I did want involved parents, right? If it was possible, and I know that's not possible for everyone, and I recognize that, right? That's why for us at CoTripper, we're building community. Like a community doesn't have to be a co-parent, doesn't have to
Yeah.
be the dad.
Right.
My mom is my co-parent a lot of the time, you
We
know?
talked about my best friend. She
Yeah.
was when she would always joke and be like, "I'm the co-parent."
Yes, and that's fine. Like,
Yeah.
okay, sis, you are. You
She's
know,
her godmom. So
love that.
yeah.
So I guess I just wanted to preface with just a little bit of like how I think about it, but I would love to know and let the community know, or anyone who's watching this know, just as your experience as a single mom, like how is co-parent work or not doesn't work, or like what is your situation with co-parenting?
We approach it the same way, and I'm extremely grateful for that because I did have a kid young, like I was 20. And so I'm very grateful I had like the mindset going into it that just keep like the long-term goal in mind. And like having the base of like putting six first versus my own feelings and kind of being the bigger person a lot of the time. So like of course, yeah, in the beginning there's challenges. I think our situation, like me living in a different state and or him like moving away while I was pregnant, like leads to a lot of mixed emotions and all of that. But I think like with anything, like time, it gets easier with time. If you guys both are able to be mature, you know?
Right.
Um, and like the start of anything is usually messy. The start of building a business, the start of co-parenting, it was messy. But if, like you said, if you can keep like the long-term vision of like, okay, what's best though for our kid in mind and have that be the driving force and then kind of have your own feelings take a back seat. Um, that's kind of how I've approached it. And yeah, I think it's just like being able to, like you said, take stuff on the chin and move on and be like, okay. But I know I also have had to learn that like her relationship with me is our relationship and her relationship with her dad is like his relationship, and I can't micromanage, that relationship. I kind of have to let that relationship live and be what it is, and that's their relationship to have. It's not my relationship. Um, like that's not my dad. It's her dad.
Right.
And so like let them let that relationship be what it is, and um, be grateful that I have the relationships that I have, and focus my time into six and our relationship versus trying to do everything on that side too. And like, because at certain times you can only focus. Co-parenting for me, I've realized I can only control what go on in my house. I don't whatever go on in that house, that's not my business. This house is my business. So that's what I'll be focused on, you know?
Yeah.
And the sooner you accept that, like, it honestly makes co-parenting. It's like, listen, my house good. Y'all had now that one, whatever y'all got going on over there, that's what y'all got going on over there. But this one good. So that's the one I'm gonna focus on, you know?
Right. Right. I literally stopped trying to, there are certain things I try to keep generally aligned because we have like school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, "Child," I'm like, you in my house. Sometimes I have to reset my son. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know whose house you're at, right? Like, and I'm not trying to be divisive, but I'm also trying to communicate that like every house, when you have kids who co-parent and they spend time at both homes, there are different rules.
Yeah, the
It's a
transition.
fantasy to think y'all are going to do things exactly the same. So they need to be reminded sometimes. And my son's 13. So I'm dealing with the teens on top of that. I'm like, Jesus Lord, nobody prepared me. But, but I'm like, you have to reset and say like, hey, you're here now. And I try to not push. I guess it's weird as a single mom, at least for me, because what I'm trying not to do is like make it seem like him growing up this way is any kind of deficit,
Yeah.
right? But I'm also trying to help him realize that I'm the only person here right now,
Yeah.
right? Maybe not forever, but I'm the only person here right now, right? So that means that the things that I require you to do as a 13-year-old boy, young man, are not the same as when you're over there, because his dad is married. He has two parents, a
Yeah.
stepmom and his dad. So it's a different environment. I'm like, I don't have the luxury of having another person right now. So I need you to do what you got to do over here.
1,000%.
Yeah.
And we've always, six doesn't know any different. So it's always kind of just been an ongoing conversation because she only knew families where mom and dads were supposed to live together from like media she consumed, and then when she started school. So like, as those questions and stuff came up, like we've always had those, it's been like an open conversation and an ongoing conversation for her. But yeah, I think the transition is hard always when they go from one to the next. That's always hard. That's always tough, right? From toddler to teens.
Yes, yes. And even the transition of like home to home, like, and I love that you're saying like just an open ongoing dialogue. I mean, that's pretty much my philosophy. Like I don't sugarcoat anything. I'm like, hey, I'm a single mom and this is what it means for me, for us,
Right.
right? You may have a friend with a single mom who has a different experience, right? But this is what it means for us. And let's talk about it, right? Let's communicate about it. Like if you feel angry that you have to do something versus here or there, like it's just like you said, that consistent dialogue, to really bring your kids to an understanding of how they're growing up and their experience. I know one thing I always joke about with my friends is I'm like, one of my friends is a single mom and she has her kids like full time, right? And I'm like, but you don't have to deal with the scheduling. I'm
I
like,
don't either. That's every time I joke about it is like, yeah, I could not do like, I think I would miss my kids so much if I had to split time. Like,
it's hard and people don't talk about it enough. I'm like, yes, co-parenting is great. Yes, they get, funny. I mean, me personally, I don't get child support, right? I love child support. It's required and necessary for some people. But like, so for me, it's like the hardest part is switching.
yeah,
It's like logistics and switching.
and
And
you
then
have to deal with
your
that
kids.
on a more regular basis.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we've come to a place now where my daughter, she's primarily stays full time because like with my son, I'm traumatized. Traumatized by the switching. So my son, we finally got to a place where now he's older and he does like quarters, right? We have a clean start in the quarters because homework was a whole thing when we were switching more frequently. It was
Yeah.
like, I don't know, Jesus, but this ain't it. Like, I need a clean start and end to the homework. Okay. But like now we're in a rhythm where like he's old enough, like, and it becomes easier over time. I think I was challenged definitely more when my kids were younger.
Yeah.
The switching was hard for me too, you know, especially when they were younger. Now I'm like, bye.
To freedom.
You call me, text me. Okay, bye. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent, but okay. So since we're talking about family, I just want to tidbit on relationships, and then you know, then we'll be almost done, girl. But like,
No worries. No.
I have interesting thoughts. I don't. This could also be another podcast or
Mhm.
interview or whatever. So I'm not going to go deep into it. But I guess how has your experience as a single mom and just navigating, um, you know, being a separated mom impacted like love, relationships, and how you approach that, and how you kind of involve Six in it as well. Do you or don't you? Like, give us all the tea.
Okay. I don't know if it's really I don't know if it's made a huge impact on my views on love and relationships.
Mhm.
I just love love. I'm a hopeless romantic anyway, so like it doesn't really like make a difference to me, but I feel like so many people will try to like shame you around like dating and stuff, but I think men love single moms. Like men love to joke about saying something slick about being a stepdad, like stuff like that. So
Right, right.
I I don't really subscribe to the notion of like being shamed about dating and being a mom like at all.
I love that.
At all. So yeah, I don't think it's really had any impact on my dating.
So when you date, like I know I had this whole system, so to speak, of like when do I involve my kids? And I'm 37 now, so I'm a little more like whatever, you know, but I think it's something that single moms navigate, like how soon or not soon to involve your kids in relationships. Does it have to be like a level of seriousness? Like, what is your take on? Are you just like I'm gonna go with the flow and do whatever, or like you're more structured on like keeping Six kind of out until you, I don't know, figure things out?
I I when she was little, I would only date people who didn't live in Atlanta, who like lived in New York or LA, and then I would see them. I traveled up like almost every month, so it wasn't like, and then that would be how I dated, and like that was cool and it worked. And then right before COVID, I actually met somebody and he lived here, and um it actually happened that Six was with her dad for a month um in LA. So like we dated for that month and things got, we were like, okay, this is what we're doing. Like this is for real. And so we started doing, when Six was home, we started like little group outings because with friends. And so it wasn't like just the two of us, but then eventually yeah. I think after like a handful of like group outings, we did our own, like just like me, partners, and then Six, and it was fine. Like I think when she was younger, it was just easier to date people that didn't live here. Like, and I didn't have to worry about, like I could
Yeah.
just be a mom when I was home, and then I could travel, have fun, be somewhere for 3 days, woo, fine, yeah, and then go back home.
Right, right,
So I never really had to put too much thought into it because I thought I would just be doing that,
right.
be having fun, and a mom at home. And then when I met my partner, then it kind of had to figure it out, and my solution was group settings for and that month that she was away.
Right. I love that. I love that. Kind of wean the kids in to the
Yeah,
situation.
yeah. I
Yeah.
gotta see how you are. Like I gotta feel it out, see if she likes you. Because my kid will not like she's bad vibe. She's out of there. So
She's
yeah,
like, it's a no for me, mom. I
yeah,
don't want to see it again.
she will let you know if she likes somebody or not. So I just kind of was like, yeah, let's just see how it goes, and then it felt right. So
I love that. And typically like kids are so honest. That's what I love about at least my kids. They are there are two. I'd be like, Lord, where did they get this mouth from? Because it didn't come from me. That must be their daddy side. Because, but like kids are so honest, you know, and I feel like I'm single currently, right? Still, Jesus, I've seen what you've done for others, but I don't know. I think they're just so honest, right? And
Yeah.
they are more based on energy, and I feel like sometimes we're in our heads, whereas like they are going to be straight shooters, straight to the
Yeah.
point. And I love that because it's actually easier to date once you start introducing and your kids start to kind of react to the people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most telling, you know, that's the most telling moment for
Yeah.
me.
You can't, and that's the thing. Like so many, I think moms put a lot of pressure. Like, oh no, like I don't want my kids to see me have like a revolving door of men, whatever. But at the same time, you can only date somebody for so long before you have to have them meet your kids, because if it doesn't mesh with the kids, how is it going to work, you know?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I feel like, yeah, but taking that stigma out. And I remember in therapy, I was talking about like dating and of course that stigma. My therapist was like, that's you're a dating mom. Like that's what it is. And you can have these age appropriate conversations and it doesn't have to be something negative. Like you can
Right.
have age appropriate conversations with your kids and tell them what you're doing and who they're meeting and or whatever, like however you want to position it, whatever is age appropriate, but like that's just your reality. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have to do it at some point. You know, the kids have to be introduced. And to me, that's like like we're saying, that's the most critical point. Like, I could like you, but if my kids don't like you,
yeah,
then it ain't
we
gonna work.
wasted these 6 months. I waited.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm like, okay, well, okay. Well, I love it. Tell us how we can get involved with Tinder. Like, what can our community do, or just anybody watching this do to support
Yeah,
your organization? I absolutely love what you
thank
have going on, and I'm so excited for what you guys are going to build in the future. So, how can we stay in touch with Tinder?
you guys can find us on the web at www.thetenderfoundation.com, on Instagram at Tender, Tender, and Twitter at Tender ATL, TenderATL.
Well,
Oh,
thank you.
thank
I
you so
mean, I'm
much.
so excited for our community to just get to know Tinder. I'm so excited to get to know you. And I love what you're doing in Atlanta. And I hope this is the first of many
Yeah,
collaborations that we have as we, do the thing, do the damn thing for single moms.
absolutely.
So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm super excited to share this with our community. And thank you guys for watching or listening.
Thank you so much.